Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Skywatcher What's Up Webcast, where we check out everything from what's up into the nighttime sky to equipment to helpful tips and tricks. Of course, at the end of the month, we have a special guest on to talk about their specialty in the field of astronomy. And it's the first of the month. It's the first Friday of March. It's hard to believe that we're already 3 months into 2022. But regardless, thanks for hanging out with us. Like I said, we do this every Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, right here at the Skywatcher USA YouTube channel. If you like what you see here, please go ahead and subscribe. Leave a like on a video if you can. It lets us know we're doing a good job and that we should keep doing it. If you have any ideas for future episodes, we're always looking for ideas for an episode. You could email us at info@skywatcherusa.com and just title it What's Up. And if you have pitched an idea to us and you haven't seen it, don't worry. It does take some time for us to schedule everything. It's not like we just come up with an idea and the next week it happens. We usually plan these out by quarter. So, if you haven't seen something, it doesn't mean we're not going to do it. It just means it hasn't made its way into the schedule yet. If you want to stay up with what's going on with Skywatcher, there's a lot of cool things that are about to happen over the next several weeks with Skywatcher. So, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Please go over to our website, skywatcherusa.com, and head up and hit the subscribe and save button. Jump on our email list, and it'll keep you up to date with what's going on here at the webcast, new products, and what have you. And there's a lot of nifty things, like I said, that are actually coming up in the near future. So we are pretty excited to share that with you guys as well. Now, if you're looking for swag, just to let you know, we do have our skywatcher.threadless.com store. We've got all kinds of shirts, leggings, all kinds of really cool stuff there. You can always head over to the Skywatcher Threadless store. Again, it's skywatcher.threadless.com. Hoodies, all kinds of stuff to match whatever Skywatcher gear you've got, or just because it's cool. So anyway, there's the Threadless store right there. That's skywatcher.threadless.com. We appreciate you hanging out and checking it out. But without further ado, let's get started. So again, like I said, it is the first Friday of March, which means we're checking out what's up in the nighttime sky. And we are kind of we're about to do the transition from winter into spring, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere, and the Southern Hemisphere is about to go into autumn. But because we're based up here in the Northern Hemisphere, we're just covering the Northern Hemisphere. Sorry to my Southern Hemisphere friends. But March does mark spring, at least the end of March, so this will cover that as well. So right off the bat, let's talk about the big bright thing in the sky. And no, it's not the sun, although it is the sun during the day. New moon was March 2nd. So right now, if you go out this evening, you're going to be able to see a bunch of this. I'm sorry. I just realized that I wasn't sharing the right thing. So sorry, real quick, blah, 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 blah. Go to our website, hit the subscribe button right there. Ta-da, there it is. We got a bunch of cool things coming up. If you want to stay informed, go add to our email list. And then if you want to go over to our cool, nifty swag store, it's Threadless or skywatcher.threadless.com. There's all our nifty things right there. Ta-da. And that's it. We're back now that you can see everything on the screen there. Sorry about that. Now let's talk about the big bright thing in the nighttime sky, the moon. Anyway, back to your normal content. March 2nd was new moon, so 2 days ago. We do have some thin crescents that are happening this weekend, so if you are looking to get out and do some dark sky viewing this weekend is totally fine. However, you can get out and do that on the 26th and the 27th of this month as well, because the moon will be a waxing gibbous, or waning crescent, later in the month, so it'll rise later in the evening. So if you're looking to get some nice dark skies, you can still catch that at the end of the month there. But like I said, we have some real thin crescent moons coming out right now. So today is the 4th. This would be the sky 8 o'clock this evening. Let me back this up a little bit, maybe an hour. So really thin little crescent moon. There was a very, very thin one last night, like just over 2% illuminated. last night. But tonight you'll be able to walk out and see that this evening. This is Stellarium. It's a free software you can get online. It's a pretty cool little thing. But you'll be able to catch the crescent moon there, setting in the west. It should be out of the sky relatively quickly. And then over the next 2 days, on the 5th and 6th, we're getting a brighter crescent moon. But, you know, the moon's going to be out of the sky on Sunday night by, you know, 10 o'clock. It's not going to be that big of a deal. So, and then probably on the 5th, it is Saturday night. It's gone about 9 o'clock. So if you're going out to do some dark sky viewing this week, weekend, the moon will be out of the sky. At least tonight it'll be out of the sky probably around 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. And then on Saturday night, it'll be gone by 8 o'clock. So gives you all night to go out and do some awesome viewing of the nighttime sky. Now, the full moon is going to be coming up as well. That is March 18th is the full moon. And this particular moon is known as the worm moon. That's because earthworms this time of year, the soil's worming up. Ha ha ha. See what I did there? The soil is warming up. And earthworms are starting to come out and do what they do, preparing for spring, just in time to plant the gardens and all kinds of whatever you got going on. But that is the worm moon. That is the March full moon, and that takes place on March 18th. So plan accordingly. Planets. Planet season's pretty much done, at least till later in the year right now. There's still a couple planets hanging out up there. We do have Uranus, which is kind of hanging out. It's pretty low right now. So let me get this back to 8 o'clock. Let me pull this tonight. There we go. So Uranus is actually hanging up here. Right there. It's in the constellation of Aries right now. So that's one planet, but it's getting pretty low in the nighttime sky. This is a fun one to do because you can do it in most average backyard telescopes. It's just a little blue ball floating out there. If you're in dark skies, you can actually see Uranus naked eye. It's about it's about magnitude 7, just around 7. Right here it's saying 7.2. I'm sorry, 5.8. A little brighter than I thought. So it is naked eye visible. I have seen it under very dark skies. It's cool to be able to check that one off the visual scale. But it is an easy one to do in pretty much any size telescope, and adding a little bit of magnification, you can get the, looks like a little blue sphere hanging out amongst the star field. It does noticeably look different than most of the stars in the field. It doesn't have that stellar look. It does look like a planet. But yeah, that's the planet Uranus. Go ahead and check that one out. Maybe go out this weekend and check it out. It's a fun one to knock off your list. Now, Neptune is also hanging out up there, and I don't think it's showing up the way I want to on this, so we'll just have to find it. Neptune would help if I could spell it. Did we lose Neptune already? Did I mix them up? Yep. Never mind. Okay, so with that being said, we only have one planet up in the nighttime sky right now, and that is Uranus. It is theoretically naked eye visible. Neptune, I'm just going to skip over this so you guys don't see it. But yeah, Uranus is pretty much it. Now, if you're an early morning riser, which I am not, or you're going to be up, we'll just fast forward to the morning. Hanging out in the morning, you've got Venus and Mars are hanging out. Saturn has finally come around. So all the planets are going to start making their way into the early morning skies there. Jupiter is probably not too far from the sun. But we do have a conjunction, I think, with Mars and Venus this month. Let me fast forward this. Yeah. Actually, there's a cool one right there. On the morning of March 25th. Let me see if we can get back to 5 o'clock. Yeah, on March 25th, we have Venus, Saturn, and Mars making a cool. It'll be right next to the bright star right there. But you'll have a pretty cool conjunction on the 25th in the very early morning. Venus, Mars, and Saturn will be paired together if you're going to be an early morning riser. So go ahead and check that out. That's on March 25th. And yeah, so there you go. That's it for planets. Not a lot going on right now. Hopefully later this year. We do have a close approach of Mars again this year. So that'll be kind of cool to see. It won't be as good as it was in 2020, but you'll get a good view of it this year. Now the sun. The sun is starting to kick off some really nice activity. I don't change these slides. I say that every month, but it's a fun object to image or sketch because it's constantly changing. But really, the sun is really throwing out quite a show lately. And ideally, if you have... Why isn't it let me doing... I don't know why it doesn't. Usually it lets me blow that image up really easily, but there it goes. There we go. There's a lot of stuff going on the sun right now. Now, this is Gong, G-O-N-G. If you want to find it, just go to Google and type in G-O-N-G-H alpha, and then it'll take you to the website there. But these are professional observatories that have all updated, not quite live stream, but updated images every few minutes of the sun in H alpha. Now, I will say when observing the sun, you need to use proper filters. Don't go out there and just try to look at it. It's extremely dangerous and you will damage your eyes. Do not observe the sun without the proper equipment. Now, that being said, there are different types of solar filters, most common one being a white light filter that lets you see sunspots, and there's a couple of them out there. But probably the most dynamic and most popular way to look at the sun nowadays is with an H alpha filter. A solar H alpha filter, not a nighttime H alpha filter. That would not be appropriate. And also it doesn't work to do what you need. Now, if you want to learn about H alpha filters and stuff like that, we have a previous episode that talks about solar filters and all the different types and what they do. So you can go back and check that out. But there's a ton of prominences. There's some really nice filaments. There's a lot of detail going up on the sun right now, and it's just going to get better and better as we approach solar maximum. We do have 2 eclipses coming up in the next couple of years, one in 2023 and one in 2024. A total eclipse is coming up. So if you don't have a solar telescope, now would probably be the time to at least put an order in or seriously consider it, because as we get close to those 2 eclipses at the end of 2023 and spring of 2024, it's going to be very hard to get those telescopes. It's already difficult to get that equipment right now, but you can always put an order in and wait, and you're not racing the clock to get a view of the eclipse. So just something to think about. We will probably do an episode towards the end of the year discussing that topic about preparing for the eclipses that are coming. But for now, a lot of people are not really thinking about it in depth. So this would be the time that I would recommend, if you don't have one, look at getting yourself a solar telescope. But H alpha is an amazing way to observe the sun. It's where the sun is most dynamic. You can see all these awesome details on there, and they change all the time. Throughout the day, it's constantly changing. So today is a particularly nice day because there's a bunch of different things up there on the sun. So anyway, that's what's going on the sun right now. That is Gong H alpha. So just type that into Google. You'll be able to take a look at that, and it's got some cool stuff to look at there. But the sun is very dynamic right now. It's just going to get better. So it's definitely worth going out and observing it. I try to get out at least once a week just for a couple minutes. If you've got something small, like a 30 or 40 millimeter or even a 60 millimeter H alpha telescope, just put it on like a photo tripod and pop that out, and that would be awesome. Bob, we do not make an H alpha telescope. As cool as that would be, we don't. You'd have to go to like Lunt or Daystar and stuff like that. And yeah, so there you go. Meteor showers. Much like February, I was actually surprised. I thought there was something, but there's nothing. Nothing is happening for meteor showers for March. There is some stuff in April that's coming up, but it's not April, and we're not discussing April right now. So unfortunately, there's not a lot to talk about for meteor showers this month. So you might catch a few shooting stars that are floating around, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Nothing for meteor showers, unfortunately. Now, comets. I did see, whoops, jumped ahead there. I did see a very cool shot of a comet right next to the Rosette Nebula. I think Damien Pete shot it. I don't remember which one it was. Our observatory, we've had some weather out there, so haven't had a lot of time to do some imaging of what's cool and stuff in the comet world. But let's see what's going on right now. This is cometchasing.skyhound.com. This is a great website if you're really into comets. It shows all kinds of the visible comets that are up. This might have been the comet next to the Rosette. It looks like it'd be correct. 104P Koal. Sorry if I butchered that. That might be the one. It is moving into Gemini, so that would be accurate. Yep. This is probably it. Anyway, this is my favorite website for using comets. So the reason being is it gives you details about all the current comets, tells you the names, and then that makes it really easy for you to go into like a program like Sky Safari and actually look up the comet, see where it's at, how bright is it, and maybe like get your star chart there. These have star charts as well, but Sky Safari makes that a little bit more interactive. But these are all the current comets that are currently visible. Now, the brightest one right now, at least in the northern hemisphere, is C 2019 L3 Atlas. This is in Gemini, shining at just under 10th magnitude. So there's nothing that's super dynamic right now in the world of comets. No big things to write about. We've lucked out recently. There's been some really nice stuff. But right now, the brightest ones, you know, we're all just under 10th magnitude, pushing past 10th magnitude. So that's doable on like a 6-inch telescope or 150 millimeter telescope. But there's nothing big right now that I'd say you have to run out and go see. But there are some fun ones out there. For example, if you are going to be going out to a dark sky site this weekend, what could be fun is, you know, pick a couple of these, you know, these top 4 right here. This one, C 2019 L3, 19P Borelli, 104P, C 2017 K2 Pan Stars. If you've got an 8 or 10-inch telescope or bigger, and you're looking for kind of a challenge, you know, take those 4 and go hunt them down and see if you can see them. That's kind of a fun little challenging thing. Unless you're doing the Messier Marathon. For those of you who are not familiar, March generally in the Northern Hemisphere is Messier time, or Messier Marathon time. A Messier Marathon is basically where you're able to observe almost all of the Messier catalog. Almost 110 objects in one night, the entire catalog. I've done like 108, 109 in one night. It was a long night, but it was doable. But that's kind of a thing that does happen this time of year. Probably this weekend would be the weekend to do it, or the later in the month. But usually you can get almost the entire catalog in one night. But that normally takes place in March, which actually segues us right into deep sky. So like I said, this weekend is the dark weekend of the month. We have some very thin crescent moons tonight, tomorrow, and Sunday night. But if you've got clear skies, this would be the Messier Marathon weekend. And like I said, a Messier Marathon is where you can go out to a dark sky site, hopefully a location that's got very good horizons, and you should be able to observe almost all 110 objects in the Messier catalog in one night. It's a fun challenge to do, especially if you're new and you like doing deep sky observing. It is a fun thing to actually go out and try to do and see what you can get out of it. But it's a fun challenge until you get into like Virgo and Ophiuchus, because Virgo is packed full of galaxies and Ophiuchus has a bunch of globular clusters in it. So it does get a little tedious, and larger aperture doesn't always help, especially when you're in the Virgo cluster of galaxies. Just because you're looking for galaxies, a bigger telescope doesn't help because there's more galaxies in the background. But anyway, this would be the time that you would go out and do the Messier Marathon. And if you are doing it, good luck. Yeah, just good luck with it. Have fun with it. That's the most important part. Someone did mention earlier, asked which galaxy is on the Skywatcher logo. I figured now that we're at the deep sky portion, it would be worth talking about. I believe, as far as I know, they went with M51, the Whirlpool galaxy, but that's the only way I can actually confirm that. But I don't know for sure. But in our little intro thing, it should be M51 is where it starts out. Now, I'm just going to start out with it right now. We have M42. A lot of this stuff is going to be a repeat over the last couple months, but these are really the gems that everyone goes after. So M42 is still hanging out right now. Let me go back to the night here. I don't want Julian. Whoop, too much. 8 o'clock. And today's the 4th. There we go. So, the constellation of Orion is still hanging out there. It's in the southwest. So you still have plenty of time to get out and observe a lot of the objects that are up in Taurus or Orion. Gemini's still hanging out. Perseus is still hanging out up there. But by late in the evening, so right around midnight, we're losing the constellation of Orion. Canis Major is going out. Gemini's still hanging in there, but we're starting to give way to the spring skies, which means galaxy season, which really means just dark skies and big telescopes is what that actually equates to. I know, Bob, you were saying in the chat, there's sure not a lot to do in April. I see what you did there. But actually, from an observing point, there's a bunch of stuff to get up there. But yeah, as we move into the April and May time frames, we're going to get into a point of the year where there's not a lot of convenient objects to go observe, at least from a backyard anymore. You know, the winter time, we have a lot of these very bright nebulas, like M42 and the Horsehead and the Rosette and all that kind of cool stuff, the cone. And then we have this gap in spring where it's galaxy season and everything's very small. And it does require, darker skies, longer focal lengths. And yeah, there's just nothing out. There's not a lot of things out there that are really convenient. It's mostly galaxies, and that's going to be about it until May time frame. Because as we get later into May, you have the constellation of like Hercules coming out. So you have the big Hercules globular cluster, M13. And then that gives way to the rising of the summer Milky Way, which of course then we get Scorpio and Ophiuchus and Cygnus, and then the Milky Way just in general from there. So, but right now we're still kind of hanging on to the winter constellations. So all that major stuff out there is still floating around. So with that being said, you still have M42. That's 1,600 light years away. You do have M43 down here as well, and the Running Man. You probably got a couple hours to go out and observe that. Maybe you want to do a final image or wrap up. Right now, I'd probably say if you're shooting an image of M42, now's probably the time you want to, chop, wrap this thing up. It's great from a dark sky site, but you can do it from your house. The addition of like an O3 filter or a UHC, which is ultra high contrast filter, does help observing in light pollution. And of course, imaging from town. M42 is a perfect target to learn how to do astrophotography, especially from in town. And it's great in visible, one-shot color, or narrowband. Don't be afraid to do narrowband and mix that with color. This is a color image with a really deep luminance shot, plus hydrogen alpha woven into it. So it's a fun one. It's just, we got to cover it because it's there. Now the Horsehead and the Flame, like I've said before, is almost the complete opposite from M42. And reason being is M42 is big, bright, easy to see. Doesn't matter what optic you've got, it's doable. Now, the Horsehead and Flame, though right next door, right next to the bright star Alnitak, is much more difficult to do. This requires dark skies. I would say you could do it in a 10-inch, but a 12-inch, any aperture helps. H-beta filter is ideal, or a UHC filter, because a UHC does pass H-beta, but an H-beta isolates the hydrogen line a lot better, so it pops out the contrast a little bit more trying to see it. The goal when you're trying to actually view the Horsehead is you're actually trying to find this nebula. This is IC434, and then you kind of follow this along, and you're basically looking for this absence of light from the nebula. So you're basically trying to find what's not there. That's basically what you're trying to find. Now, this past weekend was actually my first light outing with my new 28-inch telescope, 700, just over 700 millimeter diameter mirror. It's a 28 f3.3, big scope. We were in a slightly darker location than most backyards. It was a little bit better. And we even tried it there, and you couldn't make it out too much, even with an H-beta filter and that much aperture. So it really requires a good location, even with a large instrument, to see it, at least from a visual perspective. Now, from an astrophotography perspective, the Horsehead is a walk in the park because of these modern day filters. So you can do it in town with a one-shot color. It does show up in a minute or two image. Without a filter, you'll see it. Filters will help reduce the light pollution if you're doing one-shot color or color imaging. But narrowband filters, especially when you're imaging from in town, like an H-alpha filter, is really ideal. So that's something you want to go out and take a look at doing. It's amazing how easy this nebula is with cameras. A 30-second image, it pops right out. But yeah, it's a phenomenal nebula to go see. It's a big notch in your belt when you're at a dark sky and you finally see it, because there's so many people that see the Horsehead on like books or online, and they're like, wow, I want to see that. It's nowhere near as easy to see as it's made out to be. So it is a bit of a challenge, but if you've got some decent aperture, like a 10 or 12 inch or bigger, and access to filters and a dark sky, it's very helpful. The trick I find is getting on target and moving the telescope side to side, whether it's a Dob or whatever you're using, the controller, move it side to side, and you want to see what moves with the star field. And I find that's an easy way to detect what's there and what's not. So anyway, that's the Horsehead and the Flame. The Flame is easy. From an average sky, it's a little bit dark. The Flame Nebula is not a problem to see. It's very easy to catch. The harder part is actually trying to get IC434 in the Horsehead, which is right next door. Now, next up is... I didn't freaking fix this. I'm sorry. I thought I fixed this one, and I didn't. So this is the Rosette Nebula. I'm not even going to show you. This is the Rosette Nebula. The Rosette Nebula is located in the constellation of Monoceros, which is not far from like the Horsehead and the Belt of Orion and all that. It's just a little further east. Now, the Rosette Nebula is one of those where from an... I wouldn't say from the backyard you could get it visually. It also depends on how bad your light pollution is, but you can see the star cluster that resides inside of it. NGC 2264. It's kind of a mess of NGC catalog numbers in this object. There's a lot going on there. But the Rosette Nebula is one that is actually fairly easy to get from a dark sky site. The problem with it is it's huge. You're going to need a low power telescope with a really wide field. You could probably get it without a filter, but something like a UHC or an O3 filter is definitely doable and will help pop that out and show you. But from an imaging standpoint, the Rosette is very easy to do, even from a backyard. It's an excellent object if you've got narrowband filters. It's very vibrant in most of the narrowband filters that are available. But it's a very cool object to go out and observe. There's a lot of structure in there. So astrophotography, it's not difficult. The biggest challenge you're going to find is how large the object is. So you want to make sure that your optical system is up to encompassing that entire object and that entire field. And then from a deep sky perspective, visually, again, wide field optics will help, but dark skies will be a nice match to have with this thing. Now, right next door, almost connected to the Rosette, is the Cone Nebula. This is in Monoceros, 2,700 light years away. Again, very similar to the Cone. Dark skies are ideal, as with anything. UHC or O3 filters. Imaging-wise, this is an easy one to knock out, especially with, like I said, modern-day cameras, and those narrowband filters make this very easy to catch. There's a lot of awesome detail in here. This is a one-shot color image with hydrogen alpha applied over the top as a luminance channel. So it does help pop some of that detail out. But the Cone Nebula has a bunch of detail inside of there, and those narrowband filters will help make that doable, especially from a backyard. A lot of these emission nebulas, it's pretty much the same. If you live in a very light polluted location, especially if you're using imaging equipment, narrowband filters, or if you're using a one-shot color system, the multi-band narrowband filters are ideal to being able to take nice images and not having to really futz around too much with this light pollution that is constantly pounding away at everything. So next up is M1. M1 is still hanging out up in the constellation of Taurus. It's up there in the Horns, about 1,000 light years away. This one is a lot. I wouldn't say it's not super challenging. It's not the most exciting thing to see in the night sky, unless you're under the right conditions. Now, visually, it's going to look like a smudge amongst the star field there. And that's pretty much true for the most part. It's a little easier to see the smudge in darker skies, but as far as detail goes, it's rather difficult to actually see any structure in it. Blowing this up a little bit, you can see kind of that web kind of structure. Now, that webbing, I'm not even sure what to call it, that's really visible in hydrogen alpha. So if you're imaging, being able to use an H alpha filter to pop that, outer cage-like structure out is helpful. But from a visual standpoint, that is also visible. I have seen it in a 28-inch telescope, not mine, a friend of mine's 28-inch or 700 millimeter, if we're converting that, 0.7 meter Dobsonian telescope. We were able to see that. I think we used a UHC filter, and carefully viewing, if you looked at it just right with a large enough telescope, that kind of webbing that sits around M1 is actually visible. With the right filters under the appropriate skies with the right equipment. And I'm talking really big telescopes at this point. But if you have access, if you're going to a star party and like this weekend, and somebody's going to have like a 20-something inch telescope, half meter scope or bigger, give it a go. See if you can pull that out. It's kind of a cool little, detail to be able to check out if you can. But that's a really fun one to go take a look at. But yeah, having that large aperture to back you up is, no one's going to argue with that at all. But it is possible to see the structure on M1, but it just takes some serious aperture and some good skies. Imaging wise, it's not difficult. It is a lot smaller object than I think a lot of people think it is. So if you're shooting a short focal length scope, you might have to crop in, especially with these high megapixel cameras, or you'll need a longer focal length scope, whatever works out, or you can take a wide field shot, no problem, but it is a lot smaller of an object than I think a lot of people expect it to be. Now, one of my favorite objects, and I always forget it's there, but I'm not a super big fan of open clusters, but this one is my favorite. This is M46 in the constellation of Puppis. It's kind of a 2-for-1 or 3-for-1 if you know what you're looking for. It's 4,900 light years away. It is doable in town. It's an open cluster. Open clusters are not super, they are affected by light pollution like many other objects are, but you can still see it. And it's also really close to M47. So if you have a wide enough field telescope, you might even catch both of the open clusters. But it's in this really dense portion of the winter Milky Way. So there's a lot of stars in the region. But what I really like about this is there's a planetary nebula in the same field of view. Sorry about that. I hit my mic. So here's a full resolution shot. You can see the little bubble right in there. There's the planetary. Now, here's the thing. There's actually 2 planetaries in the field of M46. That's why I said it's a 3-for-1 deal. Now, I haven't personally visually seen the second one, but now that I have a big enough scope to go hunt it down, that might have to happen. Back this weekend when we were actually doing first light on the 28-inch, we actually observed M46 through it, and you could see the little planetary nebula without any filter whatsoever. It was pretty awesome to not need a filter. Filter obviously helps, but that much aperture, it was no problem. But M46 is a very nice cluster. There's a very dense star cloud that it sits within. In a dark sky, it's beautiful. It looks like spilt glitter everywhere, so go ahead and check that out. But what's fun is you get that planetary nebula floating in the field of view. And the one thing I think is really neat about this is the planetary is actually a foreground object, not a background object. So it sits in front of the cluster. So it's a fun one if you're out doing an outreach event. Maybe you're doing live imaging. It's a fun one to actually show people because you do get that 2 objects in one kind of thing. But there is a whole nother planetary in the field. Here's the 2 planetaries, blowing them up. There's NGC 2438, which is the planetary that's easy and sits in front of the actual cluster. And then off to the right is Minkowski 1-18, a much smaller, much dimmer planetary, more red. It does get overlooked quite a bit, but if you've imaged this target before, go back and actually check it out. You might be surprised at what's hiding inside your data. Or when you're observing this, try to find the smaller planetary, that 1-18 planetary nebula. It's a fun one to try, and it's just a fun thing to go try and find. So I love planetary nebulas. They're my favorite object to go look for. So these are it's kind of cool to catch 2 of them right next to each other in the same field. So anyway, give that a go, especially if you've got someone that's got a big scope to go hunt them down. But 2438 is very easy to see, especially if you're in a dark sky. It looks like a little ghostly bubble sitting inside of M46. A UHC or O3 would probably pop that out. Now, the smaller planetary nebula, I haven't seen that in person yet. It's got a lot more hydrogen in it, so an H-beta filter might be more helpful, but a UHC could also help as well. So good luck. Go give it a try. See what you find. Another planetary nebula, this is just a fun one, is up in Gemini. This is the Eskimo 2392. 5,000 light years away. This is easy in town. That's the nice thing about planetaries is they're bright, little dense puffballs. So a 6-inch telescope, O3 or UHC filter is very nice. Imaging wise, planetaries are very tricky because they are a nebula, but they're very condensed. So it's easy to overexpose them. So you have to shoot quick. These long exposures don't really help too much. So I think this image, here's a crop-in version of it. You can see the Eskimo there. But it's a fun one to go after. It looks like a binary star with its next door star right there. But you'll notice that the nebula itself is a lot more ghostly than stellar than the rest of them are. So go ahead and check that one out. And if you've got good skies, if it's stable, pump the magnification up. See what detail you can find. See if you can see the inner bubble. And then, you know, if you've got a big enough scope and the seeing is good, try and see what detail you can get in the parka portion of it. But it's a fun one, but definitely don't be afraid to push the magnification on the scope. Especially if you've got like a C11 or a 12-inch or a 10-inch or bigger Cassegrain, or a large Daub or something like that, try it. See what happens. If it doesn't look good, take the back it off. But that's always a fun one to go after. Let's see. M106, this is in Canis Majoris. This is just rising 25 million light years away. It's easy in a moderate sized telescope, so that 8-inch class or bigger. Good skies. It is a galaxy. Galaxies are fairly forgiving imaging in town. A light pollution filter is really all that you need. They don't have, a lot of them don't have these really delicate wisps like the nebulas do, so if you get gradients, it's easier to process them out. But dark skies, of course, always help. This one's really unique, though, because you can get some H-alpha detail inside of it. Let me crop in a little bit here. So here's the luminance shot of M106, and then here's the hydrogen detail. You can see these little red arms. These get whipped up by the black hole that's in the center of the galaxy. So it's kind of cool, especially if you're going to be imaging. Do a little bit of H-alpha data and see if you can pop those arms out. This was taken with an Esprit 150 and a ZWO 6200 with a 5 nanometer hydrogen alpha filter, but this should be doable even in a backyard because the hydrogen alpha filter would knock that out. But give it a go, see what you can find. But this is M106. It's a beautiful galaxy up in Canis Majoris. There's all kinds of bunch of galaxies in this field. But yeah, go out and take a look at it. Let me pass through here. Another 2-for-1 deal, M81 and M82. These are just rising in Ursa Major. These are 12 million light years away. These are easy to see from a backyard. They're not crazy rich with detail. But under good skies, you can see more detail in there. M81, which is the big spiral right in the middle here, with like a 12-inch telescope in dark skies, you can see the spiral arms in it. It's really impressive. And if you get a larger telescope, there's even more detail that can be seen. It's very cool. You can do imaging on these objects in town. Dark sky helps, but don't be afraid to add some H-alpha data in there as well, because M82, the next door neighbor, has this really crazy red stuff going on. So being able to have that hydrogen alpha detail will pop that out. But a big thing that is in this region is the IFN, or the Integrated Flux Nebula. All this stuff. These two galaxies just happen to sit in a very dense area of it. But in dark skies, especially with these modern cameras, there's all kinds of flux nebula hanging out there. So if you're imaging this weekend, it is the season to start imaging these two galaxies, because they're just starting to rise right as the sun goes down. So you can almost shoot it all night. But that is two objects that you can see very easily. But definitely go out, check it out, and see if you can see them. And if you're imaging, good luck trying to hunt down the Flux Nebula. It's very cool to be able to catch it. And with modern cameras, it's pretty easy. Now to wrap it all up, a lot of 2-for-1, 3-for-1 deals going on right now. Leo triplet. These are 3 galaxies. They're rising in Leo just after sunset. Leo is rising, so you can actually see it. But about 9 or 10 o'clock at night, these are high enough to where you can probably start getting to them. Now, the light year distance on this is incorrect because the galaxies are in different positions. This is doable to an extent in town. You can get 2 of the brighter ones, but it's going to take darker skies to get all 3. In town imaging, it is doable. It's just like the rest of the galaxies. You might want to use a light pollution filter, but dark skies obviously help here. Now, there are 3 galaxies here. There's M65 and M66. Those are the 2 easy ones. So if you're trying to observe this from a backyard or a moderately light polluted location, those 2 galaxies are going to be the ones that you're going to see most. They're going to be the brightest. They're going to be easiest to see. You can catch them in like a 4 or 5 inch telescope or bigger. Now, the next door one, the Hamburger Galaxy, or NGC 3628, that's a lot more difficult to do. An 8-inch telescope can do it. but you need to be in dark skies. The light pollution really knocks this thing out pretty easily. Imaging wise, all three should be pretty easy, but dark skies, there's a major tail that comes off of 3628. You can faintly start to see it right here. That goes quite a distance off the galaxy. That is a very faint tidal stream that you're going to be able to catch on very dark locations with a camera, but there's some really cool detail floating around in there. But anyway, those are just some objects to check out. Thanks a lot for hanging out with us today. But we appreciate you hanging out with us. If you like what you see here, please subscribe to the webcast and leave a like on a video. Now, like I said earlier, there's a lot of crazy things that are happening here at Skywatcher over the next couple weeks, and that's starting next week. So next week on the Skywatcher What's Up webcast, we're talking about something new. A brand new set of products is coming out. We're excited to finally announce it. This is going to be the first place that we announce it here in North America. So make sure you're here 10 a.m. Pacific next Friday to check that out. Now, someone asked if we were going to be at NEAF. The answer is no. We will not be at NEAF this year, unfortunately. Now, we have a special webcast that's actually going to be airing on April 8th called the it's a mouthful. The Skywatcher What's Up webcast, Webcastathon Extreme. I know, it's ridiculous, but it's fun. So there's going to be more details coming up on this. We are going to send out some stuff about it, but this is a all day long webcast. It's not going to be fully live because that's way too much time to be talking. The way this is going to work is we have several companies lined up that are doing small 15-minute blocks, pre-recorded blocks, about what's cool. We've got Stellar View coming on, Daystar, Star Arizona, Los Mondi, a bunch of keep hitting my freaking mic. Bunch of vendors are going to be hanging out with us. So that's going to start at 10 o'clock Pacific time on April 8th. All this will be released here shortly. But woven in there are going to be 4 live 1-hour panels. And those panels are going to have all kinds of cool things. We have an outreach panel getting started in astronomy. We have an influencer panel, lack of a better term. We've got Nico Carver's going to join us for that. Who else is in there? We got Trevor Jones is going to be in that one. We have an optics panel that we're putting together as well. So there'll be 4 live panels. We're excited to show you about that as well. That's April 8th, but there'll be more details coming up on that over the next few weeks. So we hope you join us with that. But yeah, that's what's going on. And then between there, we also have a bunch of other stuff coming up as well. And then we've got a special t-shirt that's going to be coming out that'll be available during the webcast Extreme on April 8th as well. So we'll have more details about that coming up. But that's April 8th. Next week, we've got brand new products to show you. Really excited to finally be able to bring some of these out. But over the next few weeks, we've got several things we're going to be announcing. So keep an eye out for all of that. But with that, thanks for hanging out with us this Friday. That's pretty much all I've got for you for March Night Skies. Please join us next week. We've got new products to talk about. I'll give you a little bit more details for things that are up and coming. Our 100th episode is on April 15th, and we're going to do... The plan is to do a giveaway on that for something that you guys don't know about yet. So there's a lot of cool things that are going to be coming on. So we're excited to have you guys here. Thank you very much for hanging out with us. We'll see you guys next Friday. Please have a good weekend. Go out, observe, be awesome to each other, clear skies, and see you guys next week. Take care, everyone. Bye.